Om. Om. Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. I was just sharing with a group of our Devis who are joining me live for Meaningful Morning that today is my 13th day in the Washington, D.C. area. In these 13 days, I would have completed Dialogue with Dharma, a retreat for young adults, evolving adults, Finding Your Faith, a workshop for adults, and Ganesha Mahima, a camp for kids. This is a lot of work that has been completed in a meaningful and successful way. And I'm sharing this with you because if you recollect your past, your history, you would come to understand and appreciate how much you have completed in a meaningful and successful way. And when you have the right relationship with your past, you have a hopeful future. The key being hope. Meaningful Mornings is a culture to nurture hope. And different words for this is faith, confidence, and so on. One of the first teachings that we all internalized in the beginning of 2021 was when Sri Krishna told Prince Arjuna, Nitya Sattva Staha. Staha means to be established. Nitya means comprehensively. Sattva means quietness. Those in our silent Sangha, I've been sharing 10 different ways on how we can practice Nitya Sattva Staha. If you remember, and when I say if you remember, that's just me being diplomatic. Diplomatic. I know you don't remember, and that's okay. That's why we meet every day. I had mentioned the first direction is agam, which is what you input through your ears and your eyes. The next one is apa, that which you output through your mouth. And see the beautiful relationship? Whatever you input, you're going to output. And so I've also been sharing, as you associate, so you think, as you think, so you develop. The words that Sri Krishna has been using in this chapter, he doesn't use the word jayati. Jayati means something outside growth. He uses the word sanjayati, which means inside growth. When you associate with sattva, your inner growth is towards quietness, raja, aggressiveness, tama, laziness. Our guna operates at the subconscious level. Putting this very simply, at our mind level. Now, for anyone who practiced the rad I shared with you yesterday, which was to go to the recording of chapter 4, verse 13, our subconscious has its root in the unconscious, which in our culture we call varna. The color of who I am gets expressed as these different gunas, which gets expressed as different karmas or actions. I know all of you follow everything I share. Why should I have any sort of samshaya or doubt? But still, I will go through a review based on numbers so that we can analyze which guna are we predominantly? What is the color of our personality? We'll use the basis self with a small s. Another word for this is ego. Those whose minds or thoughts are self only, again, self is small s, ego. 70% is self only. 20% is selfish. You're thinking about others, but in reference to oneself. And 10% selfless. Such personalities are very much identified with their bodies. That's who they feel they are. And so the karma, or the actions they typically engage in, is as a worker. Next, those whose mental composition is 30% self-only, 60% selfish, and 10% selfless. They only think of others 10% of the time. They're identified at a more deep level, that is body-mind. And so, the actions they engage in is more of an organizer. Number 3, your third reference. Those who are 10% self-only, 60% selfish, 30% selfless. They are identified with their mind intellect. They're more deep. And so their karma typically is that of a leader. And finally, those who are 10% self-only. They hardly think of oneself. 20% selfish. They hardly think of others in reference to oneself. They're 70% selfless, thinking of others, community, society, humanity. They identify with their intellect. Satya means ideally, to live by the ideal of an intellect. And so, their karma tends to be that of a thinker. They study happiness, they share happiness. Shri Krishna shared these gunas are always changing. And if these changes own you, you are controlled by them. But if you own these changes, then you direct the gunas. Being controlled by the gunas, Maya owns you. You directing the gunas, you are learning to rise above Maya. All of this chapter, all of that I've shared, these are references for swadhyaya. To get to know who you are. This is a form of dating yourself. Once you know who you are, you can engage in the right sadhana or discipline to evolve. In my mind, I was thinking about in the Mission Impossible movie, the new one called Dead Reckoning Part 1. The enemy is not a human. See, I watch enough movies not to give you all of the plot. Is not a human. And so I was thinking, imagine artificial intelligence was able to quantify somehow how much has been shared in Meaningful Mornings. We would break artificial intelligence. We continue to verse 11. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivriddham sattvam ityuta. Joy. Translation: Sarva all. Dwareshu, every door or gate or opening. Where? Dehesmin, in this body. Through every opening in this body, like ears, eyes, mouth, and so on. What's happening in these openings? Prakasha, there is light. Upajayate, this light is shining. This is the translation for the first line. The second line, Jnanam, this light is oriented towards knowledge, quietness. Yada, if this describes you, tada, then, vidyat, what you should know, vivriddham, what is dominant in your personality, in your subconscious, sattvam iti uta, is sattva. If all of the ways that you output and input is shining, its base is quietness, and your personality is sattva. I'll elaborate to make this more practical. When one's lifestyle is light, you are light-handed. That's at the body level, where you don't have a lot of physical needs. Your lifestyle is light-hearted. That's at the mental level. Something happens, something doesn't happen, you let it go. And light-headed, that's at the intellect level, where you're not talking and thinking about worldly matters. When your lifestyle is light, you should know that you're sattvic. This lifestyle of lightness leads one to feel that they are light. We have to go from sattva to sat. But if your lifestyle is not one of being light-handed, light-hearted, light-headed, how are you ever going to feel that your nature is light? It is hypocrisy to have a lifestyle in one way and then to feel you're in another way. That may work in an objective science. It will not work in a subjective science, and you don't need me to tell you that. You already know that. More, Ujjaswami Chinmayananda writes, it must be the experience of all that while we are perceiving something and efficiently illuminating it, we are really in a state of sattva. At this moment, if there be at that time raja and tama in us, our perception is hampered. If what you input and output is clear, that is sattva. If what you input and output is not clear, raja and tama is there. The haziness, the darkness. Just think of this in terms of understanding yourself and understanding others. If you always feel you're around misunderstanding, we have to work harder and smarter to be sattva. Some years ago, I taught a group of high school students in Houston, and the theme of our camp was the efficient, the effective, the enlightened. What I was teaching them was qualities of one whom we studied in chapter 2, the one who's content. And my point to those youth and to all of you is, the more sattvic you become, the more efficient you become, the more effective you become. We know we'll become more enlightened, but we all want to be better with our work. We want to be better joggers, better speakers, better thinkers, better writers, better everything. The way to do that is sattva. Next month, when I speak to Blue Cross Blue Shield, the theme of our workshop is investing in emotional intelligence. How can you run better meetings? Have a higher EQ. Your IQ's not working. Try another strategy. One more insight to really personalize this. Most of us are not tamasic. The fact that you're part of Meaningful Mornings, you are not tamasic. But everyone who's listening to the recording, you may be. But those who are alive, you are not. When one grows from tama to raja, one's mind changes to become balanced. Okay? You're trying to get to know yourself. When one grows from raja to sattva, one's mind becomes focused. So check yourself. Are you balanced in mind? Are you focused in mind? But the finality of this, when one grows from sattva to the word atita, which means beyond, or we can keep it simple, from sattva to sat, one's mind becomes reflective. All that you think about is divinity. From inspiration to application, your application was to go back to Chinmay Nagara's YouTube channel, Meaningful Mornings, Chapter 4, verse 13. How many of you did this? One of the qualities I was sharing with our Seeker to Facilitator program students is I tried to be empathetic, so I'm giving you the same rad today. I know you didn't do it yesterday, so I'm giving it to you today. I know you're not going to do it today, so I'm going to give it to you tomorrow again. I've already planned that in my mind. I recently met a seeker who's training in medicine, and so she has a very demanding schedule, but she told me that she's on chapter 2 in verse 40-something. And it made me so happy that she's not regretting not being part of Meaningful Mornings in the beginning. She wasn't part of it, but now she's going to be part of it. So go back to that recording. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be joy.